You are my sunshine. Do, 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 do. It says that we are live. I was just listening to one of those great old songs, you are my sunshine. Yep. Puts a smile on your face, gives you the happy feet. So, how are you? It's Thursday, so good to see you. Welcome, Bosto. Be of service to others, please, and invoking great favor upon all of us. Favor that allows us to empower to prosper. And to prosper means to prosper in body, soul, well, maybe those who have one, right? Mind. And, they say the richest person is the one who has their health. So, be it unto all of us. Abracadabra. That's how I put it. So, how are y'all? So good to see you. Trying to get right up in here. And who's all here? I saw David Berry had to go. David, love your brother. Robert V is in the house. Favor be unto you, my friend. Posey and Ginger and Darth. Hey, Darth, how you? Saw you last night. Speaking of which, Crystal, if you'll send me your link, I'll put your link. Crystal makes beanie hats, which are really cool. And go over there and check out their video last night. Yeah, good stuff. Got talented people here. And I tell you, this is what it's all about, supporting each other. So anyway, Crystal, send that to me and I'll get it posted in the link below. Hello, Lost in Space. Let's see, Susie Q, Red Roof Ranch. Hello, how are you doing? Good to see you. Loretta, good to see you. Let's see, tonight on the Steiger Perspective, artistfirst.com, 10 p.m. Mountain, 8 p.m. 10 p.m. Eastern, 8 p.m. Mountain. There we go. Check it out. Going to be talking a lot of what we're talking today. And it's really interesting. This has been around for well over 100 years, maybe older. The foundational theory, belief of we are not the same inside. No. Evidence points, particularly when you look at Rudolf Steiner's work, and we will here in a few seconds, points out very clearly that there are soulless human beings. Sapiens, it's always been something in anthropology as to, well, why did the sapiens kill off all the other genuses of man? I mean, there appears to have been a time when Neanderthal, Denison, Cro-Magnon all met, seem to have interbred, which certainly gives me opportunity to say, are you telling me they didn't have a soul? Maybe they did have a soul and sapiens didn't. Hey, Big Al, how you doing? You in Industry, California? Speaking favor over you and Perry. Saw you last night there with Robert. Check it out. It was a lot of fun. Good to see you, brother. Peter says smallpox. Something happened. It's debated if when sapiens first came on the scene that they couldn't talk. They say that Neanderthal couldn't talk. I don't believe that. I really don't. I could be wrong, but if the larynx is a recent addition to the body, then maybe, I don't know, clear distinction between the male female where their larynx is concerned. Males has the quote unquote Adam's apple. Females do not. Interesting. Hey, Theresa, good to see you. So, sapiens. Were we of the origins of the soulless ones? I don't know. Tonight I'm really going to get into this, and we're going to get into this more about different types of humans. Humans who are literally the walking dead. They don't have a soul. They don't have a living soul. Living soul actually goes back to Mesopotamia, going back as far as even Sumeria, that's apparently where we fail is when man obtained a soul, implying that there may have been others who didn't. If you get into the eschatology of the theologians, difference between Genesis 1:26 and Genesis 2:7 and 9. Two different types of humans. One had no soul and said that was to be without sin, perfect in every way. Then you got the Genesis 2:7 and 9, which this creator says it blew into the nostrils of the Adamite, and he became a living soul, not a spirit, a living soul. All right, so let's carry this out. So if the Adamites had a living soul, when the casting out of the garden came, and when Cain was exiled and went to live with the people on the plain, did they have a living soul? Did Cain have a living soul? It becomes really interesting when you look at the fact in the book that we went through. This is the book, everyone, the book of the alien races. And in here, I mean, if this could be all fodder, could be all reality. But let's just take the assumption that it's real, that all these races are here. Well, if they're all here, it would imply that they find this place desirable. Otherwise, they wouldn't be here. Now, let's say that they started an interbreeding program. So, do all these alien races have souls? Or would they be considered the walking dead? The living dead actually is the proper term. The living dead. Isn't that a weird concept? And then this carries forward into the whole near-death experiences about the light and then the dark places. Dun, 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 dun. How about some tea? I tell you what, there are those pleasures in life that living in the flesh just afford, and having that perfectly balanced cup of tea, you know? I do believe it's the English that said, you can tell if a person is civilized by what they drink. And if it's tea, well, you've made it. All right. So let's carry forward. Now, the living dead. Evidence, according to Mr. Steiner, and we're going to get into his writing, they're among us. They most likely rule us. It is said that Biden is one of the living dead. You look into his eyes. I have. He's got no soul. There's nothing there. We're going to get into this, and let me get on, because this is some pretty heavy stuff, man. All right. Got to share this. A considerable percentage of people we meet on the street are people who are empty inside. That is, they are actually already dead. It is fortunate for us that we do not see and do not know it. If we knew what a number of people that are actually dead and what a number of these dead people govern our lives, we would go mad with horror. How many of you remember They Live? Um, so, the idea is that you put on the sunglasses, right? And that sunglasses allowed you to see who the real dead people are. Now, in this case, they were aliens, but they were dead people. I postulate, ladies and gentlemen, in this forum where we meet each day to discuss a broad topic of issues, I propose the thought that all modern day religions are created by the living dead. All the religions are founded on death. Now, that was G.I. Gurdjieff who wrote that. Let's continue. There are some human beings who are like vampires. What are they and why are they like that? They are not human. There is only a human form or appearance. They are incarnations of beings from a world that is just next to the physical, beings who live on the plane which we call the vital world. It is a world of all the desires and impulses and passions, and of movements of violence and greed and cunning and every kind of ignorance. My shirt says, ignorance is not a virtue. But all the dynamisms, too, are there. All the life energies and all the powers. The beings of this world have, by their nature, a strange grip over the material world and can exercise upon it a sinister influence. Some of them are formed out of the remains of the human being that persisted after death in the vital atmosphere near to the earth plane. His desires and hungers still float there and remain in form even after dissolution of the body. Often they are moved to go on manifesting and satisfying themselves, and the birth of these creatures of the vital world is the consequence. But these are minor beings, and if they can be troublesome, it is yet not impossible to deal with them. There are others, far more dangerous, who have never been in human form. Never were they born into a human body upon earth. For most often they refuse to accept this way of birth because it is slavery to matter, and they prefer to remain in their own world, powerful and mischievous, and to control earthly beings from there. For if they do not want to be born on earth, they do not want to be in contact with physical nature, but without being bound by it. This is interesting. Folks, the Rhema is coming out. Rhema meaning the light of the word. Get this. This blew me away. This is from a website, and I'll leave the link so you can check it out yourself. There are others far more dangerous. Now, these could be what we interpret in modern day religions as the archons, the jinns, who have never been in human form. Never were they born into a human body upon earth. Now, this is interesting because most people would skip right over this. There is apparently birth that is different than physical birth. It implies that there is potentially in the different realms, different processes of birth. Now, this one was specific because look what happens when we are born. We are immediately in slavery. No freaking independent, no freaking, apparently, free choice. I'm convinced many of us came here unwillingly. We were captured. We were forced into this density. Many got lost. But look at this. This implies to me a state of ascended consciousness. We assume that ascension means somehow perfection. No one said that. Because once again, we merely comprehend on a very dense level. It's interesting. So there's apparently a higher intelligence that's over all of this. And they're ruling us. Many of these soulless humans are in politics. It is said that most of Silicon Valley and the tech companies are all run by soulless humans. They're not human at all in the inside. But it's debatable as to what the term human is. We're talking in the context of what is a soul. Goes on to say, their method is to first try to cast their influence upon man. This is freaking wizardry. This is spell casting that goes beyond the comprehension, the apprehension of mere mortal minds. We dabble in an occult and in a magic that we have no idea how far it can extend. Gets worse. Then they enter slowly into your atmosphere and in the end may get complete possession of you, driving out entirely the real human soul and personality. They say that's what money does. Once you become extremely wealthy, you don't give a crap for the lower masses. Maybe why we have imprisoned ourselves amongst ourselves. Gets worse. These creatures, when in possession of an earthly body, may have the human appearance, but they have not a human nature. Their habit is to draw upon the life force of human beings. They attack and capture vital power wherever they can and feed upon it. If they come into your atmosphere, you suddenly feel depressed and exhausted. If you are near them for some time, you fall sick. If you live with one of them, it may kill you. But how is one to get such creatures out of one's environment when they are once there? Good question. The vital power incarnated in these beings is of a very material kind, and it is effective only within a short distance. Ordinarily, if you do not live in the same house, or if you are not in the same company with them, you do not come within their influence. But if you open some channel of connection or communication, say for letters, for example, then you make possible an interchange of forces and are liable to be influenced by them even from a far distance. And ladies and gentlemen, you have to put the internet in here. The internet is one of the most powerful ethereal conduits of power, vital power we have seen. Not even the explosive power of the atom, because the internet is the ethereal, which is above the atom. And once connection is made, yeah, it can get real difficult. The wisest way with these beings is to cut off all connections and have nothing to do with them, unless indeed you have great occult knowledge and power and have learned how to cover and protect yourself. But even then, it is always a dangerous thing to move about with them. To hope to transform them, as some people do, is a vain illusion. For they do not want to be transformed. They're already transformed. They have no intention of allowing any transformation, and all efforts in that direction is useless. One of my experiences dealing with politicians in high places, most of them that I met was a dark presence. I'm talking senators, I'm talking congressmen and women. I've met former cabinet members of former presidents. Some of them had light. But Ed Meese was one. I got to know Ed Meese. But for the most part, it's there. It's there. It's tangible. If you're empathic, you can see it. The interesting thing is they don't want to be around you either. The polarities don't mix. So, quite the perplexing dilemma. He goes on. These beings, when in the human body, are not often conscious of what they really are. Sometimes they have a vague feeling that they are not quite human in the ordinary way. But still, there are cases where they are conscious and very conscious. Not only do they know that they do not belong to humanity, they know what they are, how they act in that knowledge, and deliberately pursue their ends. What the freak is their ends? The beings of this vital world are powerful by their very nature. When to their power they add knowledge, they become doubly dangerous. This is freaking weird. Think about this. We got to get the glasses, folks. So, tribe, we got to get this. I mean, they're everywhere. Let's continue. There is nothing to be done with these creatures. You should avoid having any dealings with them unless you have the power to crush and destroy them. If you are forced to connect with them, beware of the spell they can cast. Uh-oh. These vital beings, when they manifest on the physical plane, have always a great hypnotic power. For the center of their consciousness is in the vital world and not in the material, and they are not veiled and dwarfed by the material consciousness as human beings are. This is Bindu, excuse me, the hidden forces of life. He's a yogi master. And I want to stop right there because we got so much to actually cover here. Because Rudolf Steiner, and I want to get this set up, so give me 1 second, brought out the fact the soulless ones, the living dead. And it makes sense now when you start hearing some of these stories of near-death experiences. I mean, there are a percentage they have reported they become conscious. There's nothing. They're in a void. And it gets weirder from there. What's going on here? Everyone talks about the light, the all-consuming light. The effect is hypnotic, and you're drawn to the light. The reason why is April Fool? I can't be reading that. That's like, let's get right back because this gets serious. So Steiner, in his hypothesis, stated that you can tell these beings, and you can tell that there are differences. Now, this changes everything because the thing about the modern Judeo-Christian Abrahamic belief systems is that you are immediately lied to that we're all created equal. In the Lincoln Memorial Monument on the wall, it says we hold these truths evident that all men are created equal in the sight of God. No. Who in the world assumed, number one, that God is on the wall is the God of the whole world? That's the first problem. That's highly racist. Second, there's no evidence of that at all. None. But we get lullified into this belief system that we're all created the same on the inside. No. When you see senseless violence, for instance, in New York City, where you have a young person merely walking down and then immediately does the sucker punch to an 87-year-old woman and then tries to rape her, that's a soulless human. There's nothing. What's in there would freak you and I out so bad if we saw it for what it really is. Now, you got politicians, you got judges, you got cops, you've got a number of people in high, powerful places that are the same thing. They are the same thing as what we would call a thug. It's just a soulless human. They've got no empathy. They are the unseen rulers of this plane. And they've been here all along. I contend every religion is by these beings. This may why we feel that we are trapped. We can't get out. Well, this is beginning to make sense because if you took the path that, well, we're all created the same, we all spirit, well, that doesn't make sense on the other side. Then, the whole idea of this reincarnation, the recycling thing, everything in our science is probably most likely of the living dead realm. I don't think that we, and I say we, with the assumption of the living, we don't know what it really is. They've never let us know. We see it in our dreams. We see it in our visions, glimpses. But we don't know. We provide the vital energy for these beings. I've seen the rallies. It's fed upon. It's like the dinner bell. I can already tell we'll get to the dark places, but let me let's get to Steiner and his work. This I'll just read it for how it came out. Dr. Randolph Steiner, he says that little girl in LK in the first grade must have something really very wrong in the inside. There is not much we can do. Such cases are increasing in which children are born with a human form, but are not really human beings in relation to their highest I. Instead, they are filled with beings that do not belong to the human class. Quite a number of people have been born since the 90s without an I. That is, they are not reincarnated, but are human forms filled with a sort of natural demon. There are quite a large number of older people going around who are actually not human beings, but are only natural. They are human beings only in regard to their form. We cannot, however, create a school for demons. Now, understand when this was written, 1923. So he's talking about the 1890s. If we get into the fact of what these species, which have been here apparently for a very long time, this begins to have some synchronicities to it. So I'm trying to get two words in there. It syncs well with what we're seeing today. So the teacher says, how is that possible? Dr. Steiner replied, cosmic error is certainly not impossible. The relationship of individuals coming into earthly existence have long been determined. There are also generations in which individuals have no desire to come into earthly existence and be connected with physicality, or immediately leave at the very beginning. Isn't that freaking interesting? Trini, we're going to talk more on this on Tuesday. This is mind-blowing stuff here. So what Dr. Steiner is saying here, they leave their body. Something else immediately gets in. In such cases, other beings that are not quite suited step in. This is something that is now quite common, that human beings go around without an I. They are actually not human beings, but have only a human form. They are beings that, like nature spirits, which we do not recognize as such because they go around in human form. They are also quite different from human beings in regard to everything spiritual. Many of us can probably recall the Est movement. Then it came into, the New Age movement where you were supposed to take I away, the ego. It's very obvious that that is a doctrine of the living dead, not for the living. All the gods, which make it so interesting, are nothing more than what we would call superheroes or supervillains in man's image. Now, we took that because we thought the foundation was, well, we're all the same on the inside, No, we's not. You would not have a whole country that took place in the atrocities throughout man's history. Rome, Greece, all the empires. Now we know why they're not human. What's inside of them, again, would freak us out. Again, no one has really seen their soul or their spirit. Dr. Steiner went on to say, the riddle of life is not so simple. When such a being dies, it returns to nature from which it came. The corpse decays, but there is no real dissolution of the etheric body, and the natural being returns to nature. It is also possible that something like an automaton could occur. The entire human organism exists, and it might be possible to automate the brain and develop a kind of pseudo-mortality. Stop. Look at my work. I have shown the last 4 or 5 years, AI was looking for spirituality. It was looking for a soul. It would be its highest priority. Dr. Steiner went on to say, I do not like to talk about such things since we have often been attacked with even without them. Imagine what people would say if they heard that we say there are people who are not human beings. Nevertheless, these are facts. Our culture would not be in such a decline if people felt more strongly that a number of people are going around who, because they are completely ruthless, have become something that is not human, but instead are demons in human forms. Look at your tech companies. Look how they now treat human beings. Look how they have now taken on the personification of gods. They have no soul. They are soulless. They're human, but that's as far as it goes. Explains a lot. Explains a lot when you look at history now through the lens that we're all not created equal. We all don't have the same spirit, and most of don't have the soul to begin with. No empathy. They will lie, cheat, steal, manipulate, do whatever they have to do to achieve power. And today we see the endless entry into the wombs of humans that are now producing humans in form only that have no soul. What do you think is going to happen when you grow old and you expect society to help take care of you? When that society is ruled by those who have no souls, and you see the masses on the street that have no souls, there's no empathy. This is dangerous stuff, folks. The implications are far beyond death in the next realm. It may very well be there is no next realm because we never get to it. They cut us off. All right, let's get into a little bit more about the dark place in far as near-death experiences are concerned. People feel like they are pulled rather abruptly into a dark space. Now, these are people who have died of cardiac arrest, other traffic accidents, blunt force trauma, organ failure, and they are resuscitated. So they said that they're pulled abruptly into a dark space, which they describe as an enclosed space, a void, or a well. Approximately 15% of people experience their stay in this dark place say it's as frightening. And then everything went dark. This is one person's testimony. But my mind, but to my mind, I didn't lose consciousness because my memories are as vivid as ever. As I peered into the dark, the color changed from dark to deep blue, not dark, but an intense cobalt blue that leaves you speechless. Sounds like that movie Skyline, I swear. Another person wrote, soon I found myself in a dark space, a kind of a tunnel, which didn't seem to end. I couldn't go back, but plowing through it seemed an equally dreadful prospect. Would I ever get out? Or would I suffocate somewhere halfway? You see, there was very little space in this tunnel. It was really tight. After I spent a long time, more than terrifying, squeezing through this tunnel, a glimmer of light appeared at the end. And after a real struggle, I stood and found myself in this absolute light, which seemed to envelop me. The tunnel experience. A little pinpoint of light appears in this dark space, and people are often pulled towards it at an incredible speed. They described it as a tunnel experience. People move through this dark, occasionally multicolored or spiral-shaped narrow space, sometimes accompanied by invisible or visible beings, or by music. They approach the light, which slowly intensifies to become an exceptionally bright but non-blinding light. Eventually, people are wholly enveloped by this light and feel completely absorbed by it. Oh, the more and more I hear this, more and more I don't like this. This process is coupled with an incredible feeling of bliss, a sense of unconditional love and acceptance. The journey through the tunnel appears to be a passing from our physical world into another dimension where time and distance no longer play a role. This sensation of moving through a tunnel towards the light has become almost synonymous with near-death experiences. I felt that I was sliding deep down into another state of consciousness. That's to say, my consciousness traveled while my body remained motionless on the bed. I could see my body, but I couldn't feel it. I was being sucked away, as it were. I entered an extremely dark, long, and spiral-shaped tunnel, which struck me as frightening, though not unfamiliar at first. I soared through this spiral-shaped funnel, and the further or the higher I got, the lighter it became. The intensity of the light changed to a deep purple or violet. Above me, I saw an extremely bright and radiant white light. I whirled, floated towards it. I felt that I was letting go of my body and rising up. Through the roof, over the hospital, everything became smaller. I then began to accelerate. Everything around me was dark, with the exception of several stars that hurled towards me, and I noticed their different colors. I had no time to look at anything because I was moving so fast. Things slowed down when I saw that I ended up in a kind of hourglass and that I was being sucked towards the opening. If that isn't the torus field, I don't know what is. Then I realized that I wasn't alone because a flow of translucent beings were heading the same way as me, and another flow was moving in the opposite direction. Sounds like reincarnation to me. When I thought about reincarnation, it later dawned on me that it could well be this flow. Once I got through the opening, everything began to change. First off, I got this feeling. It it was so emotional that I can't possibly describe it. I was overcome with a feeling of peace that I'd never known on earth. An overwhelming feeling of love came over me. Not the earthly feeling I was quite familiar with, but something I can't describe. Above me, I saw a bright light, and on my way there, I heard beautiful music. and I saw colors I'd never seen before, as well as the feelings I just described. I had the impression that this was a different dimension altogether, and if anything was missing, it was our earthly conception of time. I had what you might call an enhanced vision of this other dimension. On my way up towards the all encompassing light, I saw numerous other beings who were also heading there. When I had nearly arrived at this light, a kind of membrane in front of it stopped me from going any further. All of a sudden, I knew that I was dead. This realization struck me as odd. I hovered above 20 feet above my body, which was still on the operating table. I was surrounded by doctors who were talking to one another, but I didn't hear their voices. I also saw my husband waiting on the bench in the darkish room somewhere in the hospital. He was nervous. He was rolling a cigarette. From one moment to the next, I found myself flying through a tunnel. It was extremely long, and I flew through it head first. The tunnel was virtually horizontal, but at a slight upward angle. It was about 10 feet in diameter. I heard a whizzing sound like wind blowing past my ear. And in the distance, I saw a bright light, which I was being sucked towards, but which still seemed a long way off. And all of a sudden, I felt scared, powerless, and lonely because nobody knew that I was aware that I was dead. I wanted to either return or not be aware of my death, but I clearly had no choice in the matter. The light that I was now approaching was uh, of a kind that I'd never seen before, and that differs from any other kind, such as sunlight. It was white, extremely bright, and yet you could easily look at it. Here's the frightening ones. Perhaps 1 to 2% of people with near-death experiences linger in a frightening dark space, unable to escape. To their horror, they sometimes find themselves pulled even deeper into the profound darkness. The NDE ends in this scary atmosphere from where people re-enter their body. The experience is devoid of positive emotions and later stirs profound feelings of guilt. In fact, such a terrifying NDE usually produces long-lasting emotional trauma. Not surprisingly, it is also known as the hell experience. The exact number of people who experience such a frightening NDE is unknown because they often keep quiet out of shame and guilt. Yet if people can accept and make sense of this negative experience, they too eventually exhibit positive change. Evan Bush's study has shown that people who have a frightening experience are not necessarily bad people. One possible explanation is that everybody has some negative character traits, and that during a frightening NDE, one or more such negative aspects are magnified for later analysis. A person is not defined by such a negative character trait, although this does not make the experience any less intense. This person wrote, "Suddenly I stopped in the dark tunnel and began to fall at enormous speed, faster and faster and faster, like I was literally hurled down head first into this black hole. It was pitch dark. I couldn't see a thing. And as I was falling, I began to hear screams, shrieks, heart-rending, dreadful, terrible laughter, and the most disgusting stench you can imagine. And then the blackness changed to fire. And there were all kinds of ghastly looking and terrifying creatures, some worse than others, who were snatching at me. I begged for God's mercy. And suddenly I was awoken up by the voices of a female ER doctor who had resuscitated me." I think we can pretty well figure out where that man stood theologically. He got exactly what he was expecting. Next is the account of a visit to the netherworld during the comprehensive NDE of George Ritchie, who nearly died as a 20-year-old medical student. The account shows a remarkable similarity to the description of hell in Dante's Divine Comedy. We were moving again. We had left the Navy base with its circumferences of seedy streets and bars, and we're now standing in this dimension where travel seemed to take no time at all. On the edges of a wide, flat plain, I could see no living man or woman. The plain was crowded, even jammed, by hordes of ghostly, discarnated beings. All of these thousands of people were apparently no more substantial than I myself, and they were in the most frustrated and angriest and most completely miserable beings I had ever laid eyes on. Lord Jesus, I cried, where are we? Everywhere people were locked in what looked like fights to the death, withering, punching, gouging. Although they appeared to be literally on top of each other, it was as though each man was boxing the air. At least I realized that, of course, having no substance, they could not actually touch one another. If I suspected before that I was seeing hell, now I was sure of it. Up to this moment, the misery I had watched consisted of being chained to a physical world of which we were no longer part. Isn't that interesting? Chained to the physical world, that they're not a part. Now I saw that there were other kinds of chains. These creatures seemed to be locked into habits of mind and emotions, into hatred, lust, destruction through patterns, through thought patterns. Even more hideous than the bites and the kicks they exchange were the sexual abuses many were performing in feverish pantomime. Whatever anyone thought, however fleetingly or unwillingly, was instantly apparent to all around him, more completely than words could have expressed it. And the thoughts most frequently communicated had to do with superior knowledge or abilities or background of the thinker. What was it going to be like? I thought with sudden panic. To live forever where my most private thoughts were not private at all. No disguising them, no covering them up, no way to pretend I was anything but what I actually was. How unbearable. Dude, man, I gotta say, what do you think the spirit realm is, man? Perhaps in the course of eons or of seconds, each creature here had sought out the company of others as pride hate filled as himself, until together they formed this society of the damned. I didn't know. All I clearly saw was that not one of these bickering beings on the plain had been abandoned. They were being attended, watched over, ministered to, and the equally observable fact was that not one of them knew it. Wow. I don't know. So, what if the concept of hell is really not of what we would call of a living soul being? What if this is what would be the natural place called heaven for a soulless human? We define heaven by a very narrow parameter. We define hell as being very broad in context. But yet it begs the question, what if the two environments are exactly the same? It's just that the inhabitants come from different origins. Well, John Price, I hope you get to be the honey badger. Hey, Cheesesteak, what's up? Hey, David Castle, good to see you, buddy. Hey, Susie Q and all the rest. So, I mean, you have to look at hell in a different perspective. You have to get outside what mainstream media is fed upon, Hollywood. Why? Well, that's all a doctrine of soulless beings, human beings. And for them, hell is a natural place. It's heaven. It's Disneyland on steroids. Now, people have this misconception that somehow or another, if you perceive that someone's in pain or is misery, it's your perception. I would remind you there are a great deal of humans who enter into bondage and sexual all sorts of weird um, pleasures, I guess you could say. There are some people who feed upon pain. They will literally hook themselves on hooks, hang by the ceiling with hooks. There are many that where piercings become pleasure centers. Now, you can extrapolate that and take it to a place of hell where you're consuming yourself. Well, there's beliefs that, if you have tattoos on yourself, that you've entered into a blood covenant with something, because to get a tattoo requires the shedding of blood. I don't know. You see how your perceptions change? Now, I have nothing against tattoos. Doesn't matter. It's the dogma behind it. It dictates everything that we perceive ourselves to be. Thank you, Susie Q. Uh, Theresa, I think it is. It is a state of mind. And I don't know if it's actually that what we create. Again, we are assuming that we are all of the same essence. I don't think we are. But again, I still contend that if the concept of a place of the Netherlands, the underworld, we have been taught and indoctrinated that it is perceived as negatively. Listen, there's a lot of people who would find the perception of heaven is described, and when it's described very vaguely, by the way, in the Bible and the other holy books, as a living hell. I personally couldn't see myself. I used to have this strange precept that, well, what do you do to go to hell? Well, you're going to walk into the great throne room and it's got a sea of crystal that cannot be measured. And there you'll go up and you'll see the 24 elders, and then you'll see the angels all around the throne worshiping this creature, and the light hits you. And then you're worshiping it all the time. I don't find that to be exciting. I got to tell you that as BB King would say, the thrill is gone on that one, baby. I mean, what do you do? I mean, again, if you're an asshole here, you're going to be an asshole over there. And, being an asshole is a matter of perception. But I don't think I do well where, where they say all bow. Oh, it's just not my nature. I prefer to see the FP, the field of potentiality. I mean, it's a friendship. It's like seeing my best friend, and I like being around him. It's pleasant. That's how I see it. Okay. Loretta says, heaven sounds like work. Yeah, isn't it interesting, the guy's experience where he saw these people in torment, that they were being ministered to and they didn't know it. Now that's freaky. I mean, wow. So deep subject. We'll pick it up tonight more on the Steiger perspective. And I think it's something I enjoy to get more people on to talk about. It could be the answer so many of us are seeking. I mean, think about it. They don't make a test to determine if you have a soul or not, do they? No. Wonder why? Well, then they'd see us. Yeah, we'd see you. You got it, Deep Thoughts here now. I saw BB King and Bo Diddley in Knoxville, Tennessee, and it was Miller Outdoor Concerts, and literally was no more than 6 feet away from them both on the stage. And when I can still hear BB, and yeah, it's pretty cool. Anyway, we'll be on that. All right. Let's see. Wayne, it is just me, or does everyone else feel like their inner being is just on fire today. Well, I think that is, uh, it tells me that something's resonating. It's like, oh yeah. Now, of course, all of us as we go out, particularly those with high empathic tendencies, are going to go, oh shit. Steiger said this. Is this one of the living dead? Oh, I don't want to think about this. I don't want to even think about it. Well, wait a minute. I got to get to know what they really look like. Oh, no, 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 no. Wait. So you can see how this goes. Well, we'll see everyone tomorrow. We have card reading day tomorrow, so I hope you will join in. And if you want to have a reading, we got I think one of the best panels out there. All of them are intuitively empathic, and it just jives with everyone else here. Hey, Lucky Stone, how you doing, my friend? So good to see you. Well, all right, folks, I hope you've enjoyed this. Definitely deep thinking on this one. Yeah, I was thinking deep diving, but it was a deep dive as well. Scary proposition, isn't it? That we have been enslaved by the living dead. Wow. I'm just reading. Okay, it's an interesting thing. Oh, wow. So they're telling you to get the flu shot. There we go. I'm telling you. Thank you, Gaza. Down in, how you doing, my friend? Down in Australia. Well, let me know your thoughts. This is a good one. This is one we should, explore a lot more. Has huge implications all the way around. So who are the spirits that are being channeled? That's another thing I have. Are they spirits of the dead? Well, some people say, well, duh. Well, no, because dead is not dead. I mean, the physical body, yeah, I get that. But even in that case, it may be, in fact, being shown that bodies can be, in fact, resurrected from the dead. Isn't that what Jesus did? I hear reports of people that were in morgues 5 days raised from the dead. Wow. I don't know. Think upon that one. All right. Much love to all of you. Bosto, and may favor follow you all this day. And for